Hello, welcome back, and I'm just looking over the short comp we did in the last video. As I said, what I usually do is once I've come up with a few layers in Houdini, I'll just render those out and start comping, just to see where it's going, and I might get a few ideas of elements that I might need, that I might not have thought of before. So that's exactly what's happening here, because I haven't changed anything since the last one, but I can already see that, well, obviously I've mentioned before that I do want to add the kind of flaky embers or ash, like something more solid feeling. But also looking at this, for me, it's kind of missing a sort of base. So it feels a little bit like insubstantial for me. If I watch this, it doesn't feel like there's much like density in the world. So it doesn't feel powerful. So my thought is I don't even need to simulate anything. I just need basically a ton of points that I can sit behind the portal here, and I can have some kind of noise moving through it. Because it doesn't need to be very visible. It could be pretty subtle, but just to kind of fill in some of those gaps. Yeah, so let's jump into Houdini and maybe work on those two additional layers I'm talking about before we start to mess around with the environmental effects. Because once we have those two, I think that's pretty much most of the actual portal effect done. I mean, and then we'll, obviously there's loads we can still do in the comp, but let's concentrate on those two. Now, I don't want to spend too long doing them, so I'm just going to try a few things very quickly. Right, so what do I want? I want a base that can cover pretty much the whole back of the portal. So I'll just use this sim as a reference for scale. And then I'll grab our circle. Just see what we've got here. Yeah, and I know this is super high res, so I'll resample that quickly. And then I'm just going to extrude this to get me the scale I need. So I want this to at least cover the whole thing. I think I need to switch off output front, yeah. So something like that, and then I'll scatter points and just mess around with some noises. Okay. Put down a VOP now. Put down a scatter. So we'll need loads of points. I guess I'll keep it a little bit lower for now. And then, now what I would do, and I probably will do later, is use a unified noise. But it's actually a bit buggy at the moment, and very slow. So I think for now, just to explain sort of like my thought process behind this extra element, I'll just use a turbulent noise just to keep us going. And then if it doesn't work that well, replace it with a unified noise later, just because well, if I end up needing to use a Wall-E, I could actually just use that by itself. Let's try that now. So I mean, I like the unified noise because there's so much control. and you can add, you could add the warps directly in the noise, and you can use different types of fractal over here, so you can get a very detailed, very interesting noise very easily. The problem is the speed. It's a very slow one. Let's just stick with the simple one for now anyway. What I want is I actually want to transform this noise in a way that it can feel like it's stretching outwards. So I think it would be pretty strange to have this sort of uniform layout and then have our dynamic effects on top of this. So I still want this to feel like it's stretching out. So what I'm going to do is add a point to the origin, and I'm going to color this point cloud white. Let's go black. I'll make the point white. Use our old attribute transfer. So what I want is just a smooth fall off, and obviously at some point I'm going to need to multiply anything I do with the noise by that sort of white to black range so that it falls off at the edge. So let's just try and get something super smooth here. That looks pretty good. And then basically plug that color into a transform matrix. So here I just want to take that point position of this disk and transform it here in the bop to change the way the noise is being mapped. So because I know that color range now is going from, I guess, white to black, it's going to scale those points by 1 over here and by 0 out there. So let's just increase the frequency. Whoa, that's cool. Very cool. Actually, I might want to add, I'm going to add this turbulent noise as well. And you can come up with some really cool shapes just by combining stuff with the position before the actual noise. So I can spend ages just playing around with the settings for these noises in bops. So let me try and not get too distracted with this. Just switch that off for now. So in this case, right, we have our sort of distortion. I'm going to try something here, is actually set this to white and then change the whiteness of this value, because essentially that's just scale. Yeah, this is cool because this is small scale at the circle and then it's stretching more and more as it goes out. So that's pretty cool. I mean, yeah, something like that looks pretty good. Let's try and re-add this. Get a bit of detail in there. And then what do I have? So I've got, alright, so yeah, this doesn't really give me the range now. So if I remap this based on its own color, but just to get back that black and white fall off, and I'm not seeing it because this range is so high, so I'll just take this value from the super high color and map this ramp the same. So there's our range back, and I'll just put this in the second input here. We'll import color from the second input and multiply it here at the end. I'm going to put a ramp here as well. So I can play with how bright it's getting and where. So make sure that there's no color on the actual edges, and then it goes pretty bright in the middle. So something like that. And probably put a ramp on the noise itself as well. So I can play with clamping these values. Obviously, I don't want to make it too contrasty, because the whole point of this layer is to fill up the whole background of that effect. But you can see I'm just kind of messing around. See what happens. So that's my basic plan now, is come up with just a noise that will fill up that background, and we don't have to even worry about simulating that. What I could do is maybe add this kind of just offset. I'll just go put $F in this offset for this noise. Oh, that's a bit fast. Like, it doesn't need to be fancy. I'll come back and play with these settings as well. Right, so the problem is now we've just got this disk that's doing nothing, so I'm going to copy our closer animation here. Let's make sure it actually goes somewhere. I mean, that's not going to look good. Guess I could have it fading off before it actually closes. Let me add some more points. It's a super nice effect though. Just do what I did with the other simulated layers as well, and just basically try and keep it clean, as in I'm going to delete, points below a certain value. So I think I was using remove point in a wrangle, and I've just used the delete this time. Oh, I'm going old school. Yeah, so just kind of, clean up where we can, because I'm going to use the same alpha. Where is it? Well, I don't think I need the delete section. I guess I could use either or. But just the alpha based on color thing. And then let me just add one more VOP here and just basically remap color with a normal RGB ramp to give me an actual color. So we've been going for that sort of blue. Okay. So, I mean, I'm not like 100% happy with this. I can spend a lot more time. And as I said, I might end up using unified noise or just tweaking the noises and the ramps I've made. But it's a pretty simple, straightforward, uncomplicated, interesting looking noise to replicate our portal itself. We do need it opening. Can worry about that later. Just had a thought to try this attribute noise again. Yeah, that's not bad. That gives a kind of cool effect. So I wonder if I can add something interesting to this. It's too frequent. But I might be able to use the frequency of this position noise to kind of make it feel like it's moving or like unfolding. So I could start, say, we know the portal appears at frame 20. So I could start with a kind of super high frequency and then just have it kind of scaling up for the rest of its life. Just do a quick flip book here. Doesn't seem to be doing much. What's going on? Well, it's definitely moving. I guess this, the fact that the noise itself is updating is a bit distracting. Oh, right, because it's, yeah. I only keyed it from frame 20. This is a pretty lucky effect I have going here, because the attribute noise I've switched on centered to avoid the whole point cloud moving around. So in that case, when I scale the element size, it's sort of scaling because it's scaling from the center. So it's already giving me that effect, like as if it's sort of unfolding outwards. Yeah, that's a pretty lucky benefit there. So I mean, you can see, like, even in this small stream, there's plenty of things to like tweak and mess around with here, and you get, I mean, it's not great. It's not like, it doesn't feel dynamic like the rest of these effects we have, but we just need it to subtly sit in the background. And I will need to scale it on as well. I do have an attribute already set up for that. It's this one. Transfer. No, not that one. Oh, down here with the warping. I have a keyed attribute transfer. So I can just plug that in, and plug in this, and then I should get the opening for free, pretty much. It's a bit slow. Yeah, there you go. So I'll get the same kind of thing I have for the main ones, and then I have that sort of rippling noise running through it. So I'll probably just play around with those noise settings, make sure I'm actually getting a very full feeling effect that'll fill up that background nicely. Maybe play with those noises that are adding movement as well. And probably duplicate what I have here and just make Portal D essentially. So let me do that on my own time, and when we come back we'll add the flake. We'll work on the flake system. So see you then.